Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
What's up, PGF Nation? We are back, and today we're giving our thoughts on a busy NFL trade deadline, handing out our NFL Midseason Awards, and sharing some of our favorite betting picks for this week. I'm your host, Brad Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Alex Higdon. Alex, what is going on?
Hey, man, we had a trading extravaganza over the past 24 hours, man. Some interesting things and unexpected moves to get into.
Yeah, pretty wild. Pretty much one of the busiest trade deadlines that we've seen in a really, really long time in the NFL. Lots of players got moved, but there were a couple big moves that I want to focus on. And I want to start with the Cowboys and Jets, the trade that they made. Cowboys acquiring Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle from the Jets. Look, I didn't love this trade that the Cowboys made for Quinnen Williams. I know there's a lot of Cowboys fans that are excited about this. I look at this from a standpoint of, yes, is he a good player? I think he's a good player. Is he a good addition? Yes. But when you peel back the onion a little bit, this is a guy whose pressure rate has been steadily falling. It's at an all-time low right now. And here's the thing that I haven't seen a lot of people mention. The Jets now have the rights to the better of the Cowboys' 2 first-round picks in 2027. And I don't see a lot of people mentioning this when they look at this trade. And I think that this is an important fact to look at because Dallas owns its own pick and the Green Bay pick that they acquired in the Micah Parsons trade. So think about it like this. If the Packers make a playoff run this year, and let's face it, it looks like they might. They look pretty good. And the Cowboys have a losing season, which it looks like they might. They're kind of headed that way. The Jets could move up anywhere from probably 15 to 20 spots because of the optionality that they have with this trade. To me, that is a huge factor in this trade that I don't think people are looking at, Alex. And when we kind of back up and look at this trade in its entirety, the Cowboys traded Parsons for 2 first-rounders. The difference in trade return between the Parsons deal and the Williams deal was swapping a first for a second. Now the Cowboys are stuck paying Quinnen Williams. And like I said, Quinnen Williams is a good player. He's still a very good player. I'm not trying to say that he isn't, but this is a defense that I think we've seen by now. We know they need a lot more than a guy like Quinnen Williams. They need a lot of help. They have a lot of holes on this defense. And I think now you have less draft capital to rebuild with. So yes, you're adding a great player, but it's not going to fix this defense. And it gives you less capital to be able to do that going forward.
Let's compartmentalize and then break each one of those down because I'm on the opposite side of that. I think it's a great move for the Cowboys. They have an extra first-round pick now. Their belief is that they're going to make the playoffs. With the injury that we talked about on the last pod that happened with Jane Daniels, they're going to seem like they're a minuscule threat. The same with the Giants. They've put themselves in a position that they can maybe back in, and to your point, back into the playoffs. They don't have to worry about paying Quinnen Williams. Quinnen Williams is under contract until 2028. So the money, they don't have to worry about it because they don't have to re-sign him. So that we don't have to worry about because he's already under contract.
But they take on that contract though.
Yeah, they take on the contract, but
I get what you're saying. They're not extending it. I get that point, but I'm saying now you are taking on a fairly sizable contract with them.
Right. But it's only $20 million. That's the number, 20. And we have
for
to
a
be
declining player though.
He's not declining. He had bad coaching because under my guy from San Francisco, he was fine. Then he went into last year and all hell broke loose. And then this year you have a guy that wasn't coaching well, period, because we can't say a guy that's been fine in the system from which he was in automatically went from sugar to shit. We can't say that. That's coaching. You got rid of the coach that maximized his ability for him as well as Sauce. And last year and this year, those two guys have declined. The decline haven't been the players. The decline has been the coaching. Now, the belief is, and we can't say that I'm not going to say it's automatically going to work because Eberflus I've had questions about, but the hope is they have their run stuffer in Kenny Clark because that's been a big issue. They have now a guy that can pass rush and run stuff in Quinnen Williams, and they now have a rotation with OG, I believe his name, the other defensive tackle that they signed that they can rotate. You're going to have to double one of those guys. And the hope is between Sam Williams, Dante Fowler, and Azubuike that they can now get free and win their one-on-ones. That's the hope, right? That's the hope. Again, I'm not saying, but I see the vision that they have. And then you bring in Logan Wilson, who maybe perhaps can solidify. We'll just mention him since we're talking about the Cowboys. Maybe they can solidify that and he can help with Overshawn coming back, and maybe they can help the back end, because the help was really on the back end. And I'll be able to talk about the Cowboys again when we talk about this next guy.
Well, the only pushback I'll have, because we have a lot to get to, the only pushback I will have is that he was declining with Saleh as the coach too. And if it's a coaching issue, I don't have any trust in Eberflus at this point maximizing anybody on the defensive side of the ball. Now, he is still a good player. I don't want to make this seem, I don't want Cowboys fans hit me up on Twitter. He is a good player, and it's a nice addition. I'm just not sure that bringing in a guy like this automatically fixes all the issues that you have. I think it makes your defense better. I still think they have so many holes. That's my big issue. And you gave up some really valuable draft capital. That's my big pushback on it. If you look at the pass rush rate or win rate has been on a steady decline, even with Saleh there. So I'm not sure they're getting the player they think they're getting. I think a lot of Cowboys fans think they're getting a top 5 defensive tackle. He's probably more like a top 10 defensive tackle. Like, he's a very good player, but I don't think he's a game changer for them defensively. But here's the other pushback about the playoffs here. Look at their next 3 games. I mean, their schedule is rough. They're probably going to lose these next 3 games, and at that point, they are not in the playoff hunt. So it feels like a team that should have been sellers, not buyers. So that's my main pushback with Dallas, is like, this needs to be a rebuilding year. This is not a good football team. They still have way too many issues to be making moves like this. This is the kind of move you make when you're a playoff team trying to make a push, not a team with a million holes. But let's get to another big trade that we saw the Jets make, because they basically had a yard sale going on in New York, and the Colts trade for Sauce Gardner. Now, this is a move that I think makes a lot of sense, because like I said just a minute ago with the Cowboys, I don't think they should have been buyers. I do think the Colts certainly should have been buyers. So this makes sense for me. The Colts are trying to make a push here. And yes, they gave up 2 first-round picks, and that's a lot. That is a lot. I'm not going to say it's not, but I like the move from the standpoint of, I think Sauce Gardner should be a perfect fit in Lou Anarumo's defensive system. And I don't think he was a good fit in what they were trying to do in New York. You know, this is a guy who's going to play a lot more zone coverage with Anarumo, and his length and instincts, I think, will thrive in that system. With Charvarius Ward coming back from injury, Kenny Moore can move into the nickel, where that's his more natural position. And I think this secondary is going to be elite by the end of the year. So I'm going to applaud the Colts here for being aggressive and making this move that could push that defense over the top.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what I mentioned before, I believe that the compensation, they overpay for him. However, the return may be worth overpayment. Obviously, Dallas was in this, and then the second team I heard that was in this, and they have been looking for another corner, was the Seahawks. So you had Dallas and you had the Seahawks that were driving up the price, that they had to then, they probably had a first and a second, or maybe a first and a third. They probably moved from that to 2 number ones, and then added in AD Mitchell as well, who really is a really good young receiver. I know he had the bonehead mistake earlier this year, but they actually have the ability with Pierce and Pittman and all the other receivers that they had. They were able to afford letting go of one of these receivers regardless. So they added in AD Mitchell. So the Jets now have AD Mitchell, Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor, if he still continues to matriculate in the system. Their offensive line is set. They have their bookends, they have their guard, they have their center. You know, now they just need to go and draft and fill in the other pieces. Not saying that it's easy. Hey, listen, I'm a guy with a team that had 5 first-round picks before, so I'm not getting excited for anybody. And that's not anything against the Jets. I'm just saying what it is. But the other part is, for the Colts, Nick Cross having a great year, Cam Bynum, Sauce, Tre'Davious Ward coming back, Kenny Moore in the slot. They're third in interceptions already. You're going to add Sauce Gardner and Tre'Davious Ward coming back from injury. Those sack numbers are going to go up because they're going to be able to hold these guys a little bit longer. That split second longer sets off Zaire Franklin, sets off DeForest Buckner, sets off Kwity Paye and Lau Latu from their pass rush, that they'll be able to do a lot more things on defense to help out the offense, play better defense, run the ball, shorten some routes, and continue to make Daniel Jones successful and on their way to the playoffs. and perhaps a Super Bowl run. We probably should looked at the odds pre-Sauce and post-Sauce trade.
Yeah, now let's look at it from the Jets' perspective. Jets have a reason to be excited with all these picks they've accumulated and what they'll be able to do with them, but obviously a lot of talent just walked out the door as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can kind of look at this. I understand them being excited about the draft picks and the ability to rebuild because they weren't winning games with these players. So I kind of understand the idea of stripping it down to the nuts and bolts and starting to rebuild. But let's remember this one fact here. The Jets 2022 draft class at pick number 4 was Sauce Gardner. Pick number 10, Garrett Wilson. Pick number 26, Jermaine Johnson. Pick 36, Breece Hall. That was one draft class. They absolutely
and only the first 2 rounds.
Only the first 2 rounds. And I'm only bringing those up is because they acquired a lot of first and second round picks, right?
Yep.
So we're kind of looking at this like, okay, well, what can you do with all those picks? Well, you did it already. Just a couple of years ago, you had a bunch of guys that looked like building block players for this team. They absolutely crushed that draft with 3 first rounders, and then they crushed, like I said, the 36 overall pick with Breece Hall. And what do you know? Joe Douglas, the GM at the time, still got fired 2 years later because they couldn't figure out the quarterback problem. So once again, it's great that you have all these picks. I understand the mentality. I understand wanting to give this young coach a lot of runway to kind of build it how he wants it fit. But now you got to nail these picks and you got to get that quarterback situation figured out. They're certainly going to have enough capital to move around the draft board and could infuse this team with a lot of new young talent. But now you've got to nail it because, look, we just saw them, like I said, they nailed this draft just a couple years ago, and here we are in a rebuild again. So I get the excitement, but I do think they need to pump the brakes somewhat.
Yeah, I'm going to agree there, too. I mean, I was mentioning having 5 draft picks. I'm looking at the Jets. They actually have 5 draft picks between 21 and 22. You mentioned the 3 that were drafted in 22, rather the 4 that were drafted in 22. The 2 that were drafted in 21, Elijah Vera Tucker hit. And the biggest problem on why Joe Douglas got fired, they drafted Zach Wilson. So for all, because if you go through his entire, all his drafting hit on a lot of those draft picks, Will McDonald in 23, Joe Tippmann, and then you go to 24, Fashanu, Malachi Corley, Braylon. Well, Malachi didn't really work out too much, but Braylon Allen, and then Isaiah Davis. So these guys, he's been hit, and that's one of the things that I say is the difference here. I'm not too much familiar with, I believe his name is Darren Mogney, if I'm saying that correctly. I'm not familiar with him. I knew Joe Douglas. I mean, if the really big miss that he had was the quarterback. I mean, but you don't hit on the quarterback, but he hit on everything else to build the team out. And I'm not sure if you're handing this gentleman 5 first-round picks, if he's going to know what to do with it, because I could tell you for damn sure John Gruden didn't know what to do with it without him.
Joe Douglas did an incredible job building up this roster for New York, and it still wasn't good enough, but here we go again with another rebuild.
Right, and Brad, really quick, one of the other things I wanted to mention, the trade that the Colts made to get Sauce Gardner also indicated Daniel Jones is their franchise quarterback going forward. At least for the, I would say they're probably going to give him a similar 3-year deal that perhaps Geno, but somewhere between what Geno and what Baker Mayfield got. But you make a move like that, you're saying that we have our guy.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's what it says, because I think short term it says we're going for it this year, but I think long term you're right. It also says, look, we don't need those first round picks to try to package something for a quarterback in the draft. And Alex, it's the midseason point. Love doing this every year. The NFL Midseason Awards. Let's get to these here. I want to start with Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who do you got, Alex, for your Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL so far?
This has been tight, but I'm going to stick with what we talked about before. I have Emeka Egbuka as the Offensive Rookie of the Year.
This guy's been awesome. He's playing like a guy who's been in the league 10 years. Savvy route runner. He has been a big-time impact player for them, especially considering they've had injuries at the wide receiver position to some of their veteran guys. And he has been absolutely able to step in and become one of Baker's favorite targets. Thought about Egbuka here, but I'm going to go with Tyler Warren, the tight end for the Colts. This guy leads all tight ends in receiving yards this year, second in yards after catch. He's a great blocker, a very complete player at the tight end. He's a guy who can line up on the end of the line of scrimmage. He can line up in the backfield. They flex him out and play in the slot. just an incredible player, and he has added a dynamic element to that Colts offense. All right, let's shift here. Defensive side of the ball. Who do you got for your defensive rookie of the year?
Now, this was an interesting one because I don't believe that anybody has necessarily popped out and really kind of like I've been taken by storm and I'm looking at them. So I'm going to let you go first because I have two names written down and I want to hear what you have, and maybe it'll help me make a decision.
All right. So for me, Alex, this might surprise you, but I've got Jahad Campbell, the linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a guy who I think quietly under the radar has been lights out, not just in coverage, but defending the run. He's only missed 2 tackles all season. He's got 9 quarterback pressures, which is, look, that's a very good number for an off-ball linebacker. And forget rookies. This guy is already playing like a top 5 linebacker in the NFL. I think he's a guy that's playing at a Pro Bowl level right now for a rookie. I've been so impressed with what I've seen from him.
I really like what I saw from Quinnen Williams and what he was doing, but I'm going to go with a guy that I actually wanted my team to draft, and Carson Schwarzenegger. I like what this guy is doing. He's a sideline to sideline as well as a thumper of a linebacker. He is, I don't want to say he's leading it. Obviously, Myles Garrett is there, but he's an integral piece to why Cleveland, I believe they may be number 2 now, but the number 1 defense at the time when I was looking at it, the number 1 defense in the league. I've been impressed with what he's been able to do. I knew he was going to be a good player, but what he's been able to do now on Cleveland with those guys in front of him, he's really solidified that as a true 3-level defense at the line, linebacker, and defensive back position. But I will say this, though, and I find it very interesting. From a betting odds standpoint, Abdul Carter is leading in Defensive Rookie of the Year for the odds. I find that very interesting for a guy that does not start, does not have the numbers, has pressure rate, but doesn't have anything that we can talk that's tangible.
First off, I love your pick. He was a guy that I certainly thought about here. Love that pick. And quietly, the Browns might have the best rookie class in the NFL. Now, real quick on Abdul Carter. Yes, the pressures have been good, but only 1 sack. He's been awful against the run, and he's surrounded by high-level Pro Bowl level guys. Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns. I mean, I haven't been that impressed, Alex, and I've watched every single Giants game this year. So I think he's flashed. He's had some moments, but I haven't seen anything that makes me believe that he looks like some star in the making. There was some rumors floating around before the trade deadline that the Giants might move off of Kayvon Thibodeau so that they can move him into that spot.
Yeah.
I don't think it's surprising that they didn't do that.
He's still there.
Yeah, don't think that's surprising because Thibodeau quietly is having a heck of a year, by the way. Oh, I'm not saying he can't develop into a good player, and he has had some moments. He's very athletic, but he's been a liability in the run game, and he's got some pressures, but he's not getting home. So I don't know about that. I think that has more to do with name recognition, to be honest. All right, let's go to Offensive Player of the Year. Who you got, Alex?
Jonathan Taylor, and to be honest, I don't think it's close. I wouldn't be surprised if we agreed here, but it'd be interesting to see if you have somebody else. I mean, the guy's leading the league in rushing yards, and his impact to what we see mixed in with Daniel Jones, kind of settling and streamlining the quarterback position for them has allowed Jonathan Taylor to be this guy because of the threat of Daniel Jones' legs and then the offensive line protecting. Whenever you have things and you're confident, it permeates throughout the team. Daniel Jones coming there and settling things at the quarterback position, I guarantee you're hearing things from Quentin Nelson, who's more than likely the leader of that offensive line group. From the defensive side, DeForest Buckner, and what he has the defense and how they're playing, and it's permeating throughout the team that I think everybody's numbers, if we were looking at everybody's PFF numbers, these are probably some of the best PFF numbers, the metrics that most of them have had throughout from their career.
Yeah, they're off the charts, no doubt about it. And there's a reason why they're one of the favorites right now in the NFL. You're right. This is one that we absolutely agree on because I think it's just a home run. Jonathan Taylor is my pick as well for Offensive Player of the Year. I don't really think it's that close because I think you can make a case for him to be the MVP. I think he's actually been that good. One of the most explosive players in the NFL this season, on pace for 30 touchdowns, which would be second most in NFL history behind LaDainian Tomlinson. I mean, that's how good this guy's been. He's averaging almost 6 yards per carry. Yes, he's behind a very good offensive line. You mentioned those guys. But I just want to mention this, though. Not as dominant of an offensive line as what the Eagles had last year.
No.
And when we saw what Saquon Barkley did, and I get all that, nothing against him. But if you look at the key metric there when you're talking about running backs in the correlation with their offensive line is yards before contact. So go look at the yards before contact for Jonathan Taylor versus what Saquon had last year. That's a key stat to look at. But Jonathan Taylor, been absolutely awesome. I think he's the no-brainer.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Christian McCaffrey, because this is a guy that's at 3.5 yards per carry. He's not one of the top rushers in the league, but he leads everyone in total yards with 1,222 yards. He's another guy. I just want to give him, I know he's one like he's going to get comeback player of the year, but he's a guy that's also should be strongly talked about and mentioned in offensive player of the year. Not to mention, he's also third in receiving targets as a wide receiver.
The guy's just unbelievable. I'm glad you brought it up because he really is. And he's on this team. He's got so many key players around him that are injured and out or been in and out of the lineup, backup quarterback, you name it. And this guy just goes out and continues to put up video game numbers. You could easily make the case that he might be the best all-around offensive player in the NFL because of what he can do, like you mentioned, not just rushing, but receiving and all the things that he does for that offense. It's a great point. He definitely deserves some recognition for sure. Let's shift to defensive player of the year. I think there's a few different guys that kind of stand out, but I'm curious to hear who you have, Alex.
Yeah, this is another one that wasn't easy. And I'll tell you, I've been picking through Micah, Miles, and Aiden Hutchinson for the most part. I'll give you the three names that I've been deciding. I kind of move Miles down a little bit. That pouting, I get it. His performance on the field is his performance on the field, but that kind of irritated me a little bit. You sign a contract, you deserve to get what you're getting because you sign a contract to be there. I don't want to see the pouting. So, but I'm gonna go with Aiden Hutchinson. I was thinking strongly about Micah, but I'm gonna go with Aiden Hutchinson. I think, him coming back, and let's remember a lot of what he was doing in pressures and sacks that he was getting. Aleem McNeil was not there. Aleem McNeil just came back, I think, 2 games ago. They're still working him back as a big guy. So Aiden Hutchinson has really been the dominant guy on that line coming off of injury, and we know how the Detroit Lions started their season. To see where they are now and him leading the defense, I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, he's been absolutely awesome, man. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the guy has developed these last couple of years. We've watched from his rookie year to what he's become now. I don't think he's even quite hit his prime yet. And that's a scary thought because he has really developed into one of the best defensive players in the NFL. So, yeah, no doubt about it. Aiden Hutchinson has been a monster. But I'm going to go with Micah Parsons here. Obviously, the move from Dallas to Green Bay, I think it has really benefited him because he fits perfectly in what they want to do. He was NFC Defensive Player of the Month for October. In that stretch, 4 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 5 tackles for a loss in 3 games. And I looked now, BetMGM gives him the best odds to win Defensive Player of the Year right now, and I get it. 43 quarterback pressures already and 7 sacks. This guy has been an absolute wrecking ball for Green Bay. All right, let's wrap up with the biggest award, NFL MVP. Alex, who do you got for NFL MVP? Because I'll tell you right now, I think my name is going to shock you.
Well, perhaps my name is going to shock you. You probably thought I was going to go with Mahomes. I'm going to stick with who I've been saying, Baker Mayfield. I believe he's the engine that runs that car. Similar to what I said about the settling of the quarterback position with the Colts, I believe that Baker Mayfield has been leading the way for this team. Mike Evans out, Chris Godwin out, Bucky Irvin out. Doesn't matter. Who's Tez Johnson? Nobody started him on their team, you know what I'm saying? And then obviously when you get Emeka Egbuka on that team that, someone who I talked about is rookie of the year, you're getting the best out of Baker Mayfield right now, especially in a year where we perhaps thought he may falter because he lost his offensive coordinator. That's something that we always talk about. But right now, 64%, 19-19. He has a 6-2 record and 13 TDs and 2 interceptions. Does everybody remember that Baker Mayfield led the league in interceptions last year with 16? He seems to have cut out the mistakes. And again, I want to point out losing his best targets. Jalen McMillan, another rookie from last year, also out, and he's still cut down, and he's tough as nails. He plays with his almost an Allen Iverson like attitude, where his heart on his sleeve, getting in players' faces, and he's willing some of these wins at the end to get his team over the hump.
Man, that's a great point. You're right. Baker's been outstanding, and the game-winning drives, the late touchdown drives, just some of the gritty clutch performances we've seen from him, at times just putting this team on his back. Like you said, with all the injuries and what he's doing, I love that pick. I think he absolutely deserves to be in this conversation. This is the pick that's going to shock you. Drake May for the New England Patriots, second in the NFL in passer rating. This guy connects on explosive plays down the field, 13 of 17 on passes over 20 air yards, yet he's still efficient. One of the best running quarterbacks in the NFL. He has absolutely figured out when to hang in the pocket, when to get out of the pocket and extend the play. He's playing the game at a really high level. The Patriots are 6-2. They lead the AFC East. And let's face it, he is doing this with what I would say is an average at best offensive line and an average at best wide receiver group.
Yeah, I can't say anything bad about Drake May. We talk about the second or third year, the first year, my narrative, Brad, like I give a quarterback 3 years. The first year, it may have looked a little bit shaky, but he's a rookie. Second year comes back. They change, coaching change again. Josh McDaniels comes in. This is one thing that we can at least give Josh McDaniels credit for, is saying that him with the Patriots equals success on the offensive side of the ball. He, got him some extra weapons, got him an explosive running back as well. And he's been able to streamline Drake May to make big plays, get him outside the pocket, to see the entire field. Obviously, bringing in Stephon Diggs was a big piece. Even yesterday, I heard they were still making calls, checking on an A.J. Brown, checking on a few other big-time ex-boundary wide receivers, because they believe if they get that guy, they can make a run the way that defense is playing, the way the coach is coaching, and the way Drake May is showing up this year.
All right, Alex, let's wrap it up with some betting picks. I know you've got some NFL games. I think you got a couple college picks. I've got 3 NFL games. Why don't you give me your favorite bet of the week to start off?
Our favorite bet of the week, Cardinals plus 6.5 over the Seahawks.
Ooh, man, I like it. Jacoby Brissett has looked good. He really has. Look, I know he's a career backup, but this offense looks better with him under center. This is a divisional game, and I don't care what the records are. We know those divisional games are always closer than most people expect. So getting 6.5, love that bet. Love that bet, Alex. Look, I'm going to go with a divisional game as well. And I normally don't take the Thursday night football game because I want to give you guys time to be able to listen to this podcast and put your bets in. So hopefully if you're hearing this on Thursday morning, driving to work, whatever, pull over, get your betting app out, DraftKings, and make this bet. Look, I'm taking the Broncos, and I'm going to lay the 8.5 points. Raiders played a long overtime game last week. Now they're coming into a short week. This is a bad Raiders defense, especially against mobile quarterbacks. The Raiders were also sellers at the trade deadline, which, look, makes sense the way the season has gone for them. And look, Alex, I know this is your team, but that tough loss to Jacksonville kind of felt like a knockout punch. And I have a hard time thinking that on a short week, they're going to be able to get up and compete with a Broncos team that is really clicking right now. So I'm going to lay the 8.5.
Yeah. Look, I like that bet a lot. You're not going to get any pushback from me. The only bet that I wish I could make is that Pete Carroll's going to be going, but I know he's not. So I digress. I'll move on from there. My second bet, I'm taking the Lions money line. I'm laying the 8.5 over the Commanders. Easy bet. I mean, that's low hanging fruit, but that's the easiest one I'll give you this week.
I like it. And I will say this real quick because I don't want to get off topic. I think Pete Carroll and Geno are gone next year. I think they're gone. I think they're a package deal. I think this season has gone off the rails, and I think they're both going to be gone. I know that might be a spicy take, but I think it might happen. You might just get your wish, Alex, and they might be starting over again.
You know what? I have a spicy take, but I'm going to save it for the end of the pod. I have a spicy take.
All right, stick around for that, guys. We got a few more bets for you here. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Baker Mayfields -2.5 at home versus the Patriots. We just mentioned these two quarterbacks, how well they're playing. These two teams are both playing really great football. But when I look at this, you got the Bucs at home here, which I think is huge. New England has won 6 straight. And look, they're playing great ball, but it just feels like they're due for a letdown spot. The Bucs are getting healthy. They're coming off of a bye. And I just think this is a spot for them to be able to get a big win here against the Patriots. And only laying 2.5 points feels like I'm getting some value.
I'm going to go against you on that one. I just think 2.5, 2.5 is too low. I know they're playing at home. They're coming off the bye. I don't like the fact that nobody's practiced. Bucky Irvin hasn't practiced. Chris Godwin hasn't practiced. Jalen McMillan, they're saying he's more than likely going to be out for the end. We know Mike Evans is out. I know that I just chose Baker Mayfield as my MVP, but I think the way that the Patriots are rolling right now, that's going to be a ship that's going to be hard to stop. For my last NFL pick, I'm taking the Packers money. I'm going to lay the 2.5, and I'm going to take the Packers money line over the Eagles in Green Bay.
Oh man, that's a big game. That is a big, big game. And you know what? I think that is a measuring stick game. I like that you're going to lay the points and put some on the money line, of course, with the short spread. Which Packers team shows up? Is it the Packers that we saw versus the Browns and the Panthers, or is it going to be the Packers we saw a couple weeks ago against the Steelers that just looked like they were unstoppable? So that's going to be really a fascinating one for sure. Last NFL game for me, I'm going to take the Ravens and I'm going to lay the 4.5 points versus the Vikings here. I think the Ravens are getting back on track. I think this is a team that's starting to get healthy, starting to click. Lamar is back. He looks fresh. And when I look at this Vikings team last week, coming off of that big win against Detroit, I loved their game plan, and we talked about it on the pod. The game plan with all the pressure they got on Goff and all those blitzes, well, look, those worked versus Goff, a pocket guy. They're not going to work versus Lamar. I think this is a whole different game plan, and I don't think they're going to be able to slow him down. I don't think they have the linebackers in space to be able to spy Lamar. I think this is a game where he goes off. I also just don't trust J.J. McCarthy to play that well again. So give me the Ravens and laying the points here. I think they get a big win and cover versus the Vikings.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that happening. It's going to be interesting. J.J. McCarthy is a rookie. And if this defense can get up with the addition of Draymond Jones, who I think is a perfect fit for what they've been missing up front. Not saying he's going to flip the whole defense by his presence, but I think he just solidifies and stabilizes some of the things that they've been missing up front, and that, Mike Green has started to come along as a rookie. I think they'll be able to get after J.J. McCarthy as well.
All right, Alex, you had a couple college picks you wanted to get?
Yeah, really quick. You'll hear from me every single week. This is an emotional pick. I'm picking any team and laying the point money line against BYU. I'm taking Texas Tech and I'm laying the 10.5 against BYU. And I'm also going to take Auburn and the points to 6.5 over Vandy.
Ooh, interesting. I like it. Just fired their coach. So you're looking for the interim coach bounce, right? Like we always see this when a coach gets fired. The team always comes out motivated and fired up. And look, Texas Tech, I think Texas Tech on the offensive and defensive line, I just think they're going to be too much for BYU. I think this spread is 10.5 for a reason. I think they're the much better team. Nothing against BYU, but I just think they're going to have trouble in a physical ball game with Texas Tech. So I like that bet as well.
And really quick, that's just Brad. Nothing against BYU. I have everything against BYU. I want to make sure that's very well known.
Yeah. No, Alex has become the PGF BYU hater here on the show, guys. So like I said, once again, don't at me here.
Before we go, spicy take. 2026, Bill Belichick will be the head coach of the Jets.
Wow. Yeah, that is so spicy. I'm going to set that chicken wing down because I am not taking a bite out of that. That is way too hot for me, Alex. I don't know about that. I think right now this is a guy who his phone is not getting those rings right now from the NFL. I just think he is a stock that has cooled off so much that it's a penny stock now. And I don't think the NFL wants anything to do with it. But I like the take. I like the spicy take. Sometimes you got to go out on a limb. So we will certainly see if that ends up being the case here. Look, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. PGF Nation, once again, be sure to subscribe. Follow us wherever you get your podcast. I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.